The Brave Little Oak. Prologue, a whispered dream. On high, wind swept hill beyond the meadows, where the grass swayed in gentle tides beneath an endless sky, lay a single acorn nestled in the mossy soil. It was autumn's end, and most acorns around had long since surrendered to winter's sighs, but this one remained vibrant and bright as the golden sun dipped below distant hills. Though small and unassuming, the acorn held within it a dream older than time, the dream of becoming a mighty oak. That first night, when the stars gleamed like scattered lanterns against the velvet sky, the acorn whispered to the earth, "I will grow beyond the tallest trees. I will shelter birds and travelers. I will stand firm against every storm." The forest floor, stirred by mice and dormice hurrying home, listened, and even the ancient nearby stones seemed to tremble with anticipation. Yet dreams, as all who have dared to dream know, are fragile things. They must be protected and nurtured. For the acorn, protection would mean sprouting roots deep into the dark earth. And nurture would come from the warm embrace of spring's first rains. Chapter 1: First Thaw of Spring. When spring arrived, it came softly, a hush of green upon the hill, a susurration of new leaves unfurling. The acorn's shell split, revealing a tender shoot that pushed upward, eager to greet the world. It was but a slender thread of life, pale and delicate, yet brimming with promise. Nearby, a family of field mice crowded around, curious. The father mouse sniffed the shoot and said, "Little thing, you're exposed. Better hide until you're stronger." But the acorn turned sprout shook its tiny leaves and replied, "I must grow tall to see beyond the hill. I must grow deep to hold the earth." The mice exchanged worried glances but chose to stay, offering warmth through their shared burrow. As days lengthened, the sapling learned about sunlight and water. Dew on its leaves sparkled like diamonds, birds perched precariously, scratching the bark as they sang. It reveled in each new sensation, the tickle of a passing beetle's legs, the tick of a nearby gnat's wings, the taste of each raindrop. In the quiet mornings, a skylark hovered overhead and sang of distant valleys, and the sapling dreamed of touching the sky itself. Chapter 2: Rivals and Shadows. Summer sun burned brighter, and tall grasses stretched skyward like giants. The young oak found itself competing for light amid brambles and blackberry bushes. Thorns scratched its bark, shading its leaves, and even a willowy fern pressed too close. "Step aside," the oak whispered, "for I must grow." But the plants, driven by their own needs, swayed with disdain. "There is not enough sunlight here for all. Bend your will, little one." Some afternoons, a sleek fox trotted along the ridge. He paused to inspect the sapling, his whiskers twitching. "You're ambitious," the fox remarked. "A bold trait for something so small. But you'll topple in the next storm. Why not stay low, under the shelter of the shrubs?" The oak shivered. Doubt crept in like a thorny vine. "Am I too small? Too fragile?" But then, from a nearby branch, a swallow swooped in, her feathers shimmering. "Courage," she sang, "is not the absence of fear, but growing despite it." With a chirp, she flitted away, leaving the oak to ponder. Inspired, the sapling pressed harder against the earth. Its roots curled around stones and through pockets of rich humus. Slowly, it thickened at the base, anchoring itself against future winds. Each day, it grew a few inches taller, its boughs reaching toward the open sky. Chapter 3: The first trial by wind. One afternoon, heavy clouds scudded across the sky. Birds drew in their wings. The air hummed with the promise of a storm. The sapling trembled, its slender trunk bent awkwardly as gusts began to rattle the hillside. A harsh wind buffeted the young oak, bending it low to the ground. "Give up," hissed the blackberry brambles, their thorny arms slapping at its leaves. "Yield to the wind." But the oak remembered the swallow's song and the whispered vow beneath starlight. It felt the strength of its roots, gripping the soil like fingers. Bracing itself, the sapling swayed, but did not break. The storm roared, rain lashed, thunder split the sky, but at dawn it stood upright, soaked but unbowed. From behind a stone, a shy deer stepped forward. "That was bravery," she said, nuzzling the oak's wet bark. "You held firm when many would have snapped." The sapling quivered with pride, its leaves glistening with renewed purpose. Chapter 4: Allies on the Hill. As seasons passed, the sapling became a sapling young tree, not yet tall, but sturdy. News of its valor against the storm spread among the hill's inhabitants. A pair of bluebirds nested in its budding branches, and a busy squirrel built a stash of acorns in its crook. Grasshoppers sang in the meadows below, and toads croaked in the damp hollows at its feet. One evening, an old tortoise lumbered up the slope. He carried on his shell the map of many journeys, etched in cracked lines. "Little oak," he said, "I've come far and seen many storms. Stand steady, reach upward, but never forget the ground that feeds you." The oak bowed its highest branch in respect. "Thank you," it whispered, "for reminding me." Under the tortoise's advice, the young tree sent roots ever deeper, tapping springs of underground water. It grew wider at the base, forging strength from every combination of earth, water, and sun. Chapter 5: Summer's Warm Embrace. Summer returned, richer than before. Wildflowers bloomed at the oak's feet, purple clover, golden sundrops, and white meadow foam. Butterflies drifted through its branches, and bumblebees burrowed in the soil below. The oak felt connected to every living thing on the hill, the gentle nuzzle of an approaching deer, the faint scuttling of beetles in the grass, the whisper of the wind playing a tune in its leaves. Children from a nearby cottage discovered the oak. They left small offerings, shiny pebbles, carved wooden whistles, and bits of ribbon tangled in the lowest branches. They told stories of fairies and heroes beneath its shade. In their laughter, the oak found the joy of companionship. In their innocence, it discovered hope for the future, hope that its strength might shelter generations to come. Chapter 6: The Drought and the Drying Earth. But peace is never permanent. One summer, the rains failed. Day after day, the sun beat down without mercy. Grass browned, streams shrank to trickles, and the wildflowers withered. The oak's leaves drooped in despair, their edges curling brown. "Fight the heat," urged the tortoise, arriving slow but sure. "Seek deeper waters." And so the oak reached. Roots plunged through crumbly soil, past the brittle top layer, into dark wells of moisture. But the crust above grew thicker with dust, many young plants cracked and died. Only the oak and a handful of stubborn daisies endured. Ravens circled overhead, croaking warnings. "You will break," they cawed. "You cannot endure without rain." Yet the oak clung to life. Each day, it shed the weakest leaves to conserve water. Each night, it inhaled the cool, humid air drifting from the distant river. At last, a thunderhead gathered on the horizon. The first rumble of thunder rolled across the hills. In the twilight, fat raindrops began to fall, pounding the parched earth. The oak's roots drank deeply, its leaves unfurled, and under the dark sky a double rainbow arched from ridge to ridge. Chapter 7: The Great Gale. Years slipped by. The sapling was now a juvenile oak, its trunk thick as a man's thigh and its canopy spreading wide. Birds nested, squirrels played tag along its branches, and travelers paused beneath its boughs to rest. It had become a fixture on the hill, stalwart, nurturing, alive. Then, one fateful autumn, the greatest storm in memory bore down upon the region. News circulated of uprooted pines, battered cottages, and lightning striking hillside pavilions. The oak's friends, the fox, the deer, and even the tortoise, took shelter or fled. Only the oak faced the gale head-on. Winds gusted at hurricane force. Sheets of rain drove sideways. Thunder cracked as if the sky itself were splitting. Lightning illuminated the oak's form 10 times over, a lone silhouette against a furious night. Its roots held, its trunk bent at alarming angles, but still it did not break. When the storm passed, dawn revealed a devastated world. Trees lay fallen like matchsticks, fences were twisted metal, and the ground was gouged by torrents. Yet there on the crest of the hill stood the oak, battered, leaves torn, but upright. Chapter 8: Healing and Growth. In the weeks that followed, neighbors arrived to assess damage. The fox returned, her tail singed but her spirit intact. The deer nuzzled the oak's lower trunk, pressing her head against its bark in relief. Even the tortoise crawled back, exhausted but resolute. Children from the cottage brought buckets of water and soil, planting new wildflowers at the oak's base. They wove garlands of daisies in its branches. A traveling herbalist offered tonic from roots and barks to heal wounded limbs. Under their care, the oak's wounds knit over time, leaving scars that became badges of honor. During this season of recovery, the oak's branches grew new shoots, stronger, more flexible, better able to bend with storms. Its trunk expanded, the heartwood knitting together tighter than ever. And in the spring, the oak burst with a flush of vibrant leaves, more abundant than any year before. Chapter 9: A Home for Many. Decades passed, and the little oak that once was dreamed under starlight had grown into a grand oak, tall as a chapel spire, its trunk wide enough for 4 children to hold hands around. It became the landmark of the hill, the gathering place for forest creatures and villagers alike. Birds of every feather nested in its branches, from tiny kinglets to noble owls. Squirrels chattered as they leapfrogged limb to limb. Beneath its shade, fawns rested against the trunk, and rabbits burrowed cozy warrens. Fox kits tumbled between its roots. Even the tortoise, now impossibly old, lived out his days in a nook at the base, surrounded by moss. On evenings when the sky turned rose and lavender, families picnicked beneath the oak, laying blankets upon the grass and passing around loaves of bread and jars of honey. Storytellers spun legends of the oak's youth, how it defied storms and droughts, and how its courage inspired every living thing on the hill. Chapter 10: The Whispered Legacy. One twilight, as golden light filtered through the canopy, a small voice called from the grass, "Grandfather Oak?" A young sapling, no larger than a walking stick, had pushed through the earth nearby. Its leaves trembled in awe. "Yes, little one," the old oak replied, its voice a deep rustle of ages. "I am called many things, but you may call me simply Old Oak." "Teach me," said the sapling. "Teach me how to stand tall." The oak recalled its first night under the stars, when hope was a whisper. It remembered every trial, wind and storm, drought and doubt. And so, through gentle rustling, it shared its story of deep roots, of bending but not breaking, of leaning on allies, of embracing change, and of never letting fear silence one's dreams. Children gathered around, noses pressed to the grass, as the oak's tale wound through the evening air. And as the stars blinked awake overhead, the sapling settled its roots into the earth, carrying forward the oak's whispered legacy. Epilogue: Courage Forever Grown. On that same windswept hill, once home to a tiny acorn, now crowned by a venerable oak, life thrived in every form. The soil beneath was richer, the air carried more songs, and hope felt as tangible as morning dew. Travelers who paused under the oak's grandeur felt their spirits lifted, as if the tree lent them its strength. And so the tale of the brave little oak endures, a story of daring to grow, of deepening roots in adversity, of finding strength in community, and of becoming more than one ever dared to imagine. For true courage lives not only in heroic deeds, but in the quiet determination to stand firm, day after day, and to keep reaching for the light. Moral: real courage is not the absence of fear, but the steadfast resolve to grow despite it, anchored by roots of hope, nurtured by the kindness of others, and ever reaching toward the light of one's dreams.